Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nurain binti Muhammad Safri from class RBA 27338. So today I'll be presenting a current issue in talent acquisition from article titled Who Shortlists? Evidence on Gender Disparities in Hiring Outcomes by Almasa Sarabi and Nicole Heman. So the study of this article investigates how gender disparities in hiring are influenced by who creates candidate shortlists within HR departments or hiring managers. So, what are gender disparities in hiring? Gender disparities in hiring refer to systematic differences in how men and women are treated and selected during the hiring process. Now, we know what gender disparities in hiring are. Let's talk about how they actually show up in real life. So, the article gives us 4 clear examples of how women are treated differently during the hiring process. First, women are less likely to be shortlisted or hired even with the same qualifications. This means that if a man and a woman have the same education and experience, the man is still more likely to be selected for the next stage or to get the job. So, even when women are just as qualified, they are often overlooked. Second, women get fewer interview calls, even with identical resumes. Studies have shown that when employers see 2 resumes that are exactly the same, except for the name, but one male and one female, the man gets more interview invitations. This shows that gender alone can affect change even before an interview. Third, women are underrepresented in higher paid or leadership positions. Even when women are hired, they are less likely to be chosen for top roles or high-paying jobs. This creates a gender gap in promotions and salaries, especially over time. Lastly, early hiring decisions often favor men. A lot of important decisions happen at the beginning of hiring process, like who gets shortlisted. These early steps often favor men, and once someone is selected early on, they have a much higher chance of getting hired later. So, the bias at the start continues throughout the process and leads to long-term inequality. Now, let's look at the main problems the article found that contribute to gender inequality in hiring. Based on this article, there are 7 key issues. First, subjectivity and bias in shortlisting. When hiring managers choose who to interview, they may not follow the clear rules. Instead, they might use personal judgment, which can be influenced by stereotypes like thinking men are more suitable for leadership or technical roles. So, this kind of unconscious bias can lead to unfair decisions that favor men over women, even when women are qualified. So, second, lack of standardization in evaluation. There are often no fixed criteria for what makes someone the right fit. Hiring managers might change the ideal candidate depending on who applies. This causes inconsistent decisions and allows personal preferences to affect fairness, again, often benefiting men. So, third, over-reliance on informal networks and referrals. Many hiring decisions are based on referrals where someone recommends a friend or former colleague, but most of these networks are made up of men, especially in male-dominated industries. As a result, men are more likely to be referred and hired, which keeps the gender gap going. Fourth, homophily in decision-making. Homophily means people naturally feel more comfortable with others who are similar to them. Since most hiring managers are men, they may often, without realizing it, prefer hiring other men. This makes it harder for women to get selected, especially in male-dominated fields. So, next, insufficient attention to early hiring stage. Many companies try to be fair during interviews or final decisions, but they often ignore the early step of shortlisting, where bias already happens. The article shows that who gets shortlisted is one of the most important decisions, and it shapes the whole hiring outcome. So next is ineffective traditional DEI interventions. So what is DEI? DEI stands to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. DEI interventions are strategic action programs and policies designed to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion within organizations. The reason of this issue is companies often run diversity or bias awareness trainings, but research shows they don't lead to real change in who gets hired. This because they focus on changing people thinking, not on changing the actual hiring process. The article suggests that changing who makes decisions is much more effective. So lastly, organizational structure and decision maker expertise. Hiring managers are often usually busy with many tasks and may not have the time or training to carefully review every application. On the other hand, HR professionals are trained to evaluate candidates fairly and have more time to do it properly. So when HR handles shortlisting instead of managers, the process becomes more consistent and less biased. Next, let's talk about the solutions. The article presents several clear and practical solutions to address gender inequality in hiring. The most effective solution found in the study is to transfer the task of shortlisting candidates from hiring managers to the human resource department. When HR professionals took over this responsibility, the share of women hired increased significantly. This happened because HR staff are generally better trained in evaluating candidates fairly and consistently. They are more likely to follow job-related criteria and less likely to be influenced by gender bias or stereotypes. Unlike hiring managers, who are often busy and may rely on quick judgment, HR professionals have more time and expertise to assess each application properly. Another important solution is to change the structure of the hiring process itself. Rather than relying only on diversity training or awareness programs, the article explained that traditional diversity and inclusion training, while well-intentioned, often fails to change actual hiring outcomes. Instead, structural change like adjusting who makes the decisions and how those decisions are made lead to more measurable and lasting improvements. In other words, building fairness into the system is more effective than simply telling people to be fair. Third, the study also emphasized the importance of standardizing evaluation criteria. This means creating a clear checklist or rubric that applies equally to all candidates. By using fixed criteria for every applicant, companies can avoid subjective or inconsistent evaluations that often disadvantage women. When hiring managers or screeners apply the same rules to everyone, the process becomes more objective and less influenced by personal judgment. Fourth, in addition, the article highlights the problems of relying too heavily on personal networks or internal referrals during hiring. These informal methods often benefit male candidates, especially in industries or roles that are already male-dominated. To address this, companies should ensure that all job openings are publicly advertised and that all applicants are assessed based on merit rather than personal connections. This helps give women and other underrepresented groups a fairer opportunity to be considered. Fifth, focus on the first step, shortlisting. The others also point out that most gender bias occurs at the earliest stage of the hiring process during shortlisting. But this stage is often overlooked in diversity initiative. Companies tend to focus on fairness during interviews or final hiring decisions. But by then, biased shortlisting has already limited who gets a chance. Therefore, organizations should prioritize gender equity right from the start of the hiring pipeline. Lastly, the article argues that decision making should be done by people who have the time, training, and resources to do it properly. HR professionals, unlike many hiring managers, they are trained to carefully screen large numbers of applications. They are more likely to apply fair and consistent practice, leading to more balanced hiring outcomes. The study found that when HR departments were in charge of choosing which candidates to interview, instead of letting hiring managers do it, more women were hired. These results came from looking at over 8,700 job hires in more than 60 countries. When HR handled shortlisting, the hiring process became more fair and women had a better chance of getting the job. This shows that who does the shortlisting really matters when it comes to making hiring more equal for men and women. In conclusion, gender inequality in hiring is not simply the result of individual bias, but it is deeply rooted in the structures and processes used by organizations during recruitment. This study clearly shows that who makes the shortlisting decisions has a significant impact on hiring outcomes. When shortlisting is handled by trained HR professionals instead of hiring managers, the process becomes more consistent, fair, and inclusive, leading to a higher number of women being hired. Achieving gender equality in hiring is not just a matter of changing attitudes, it requires rebuilding the system to promote fairness from the very first step.